Well, welcome back to Tandem Radio Live. This is your host, Glenn DeLake, and today we're talking on places to retire. Where to retire is the title of the show today, and we are, of course, the Good News on Business, focused on God's Word and where He wants us to be. And He has so many insights into not only our personal life, but our business life. And I just want to encourage business owners, don't turn them off on Monday morning, we need prayer today more than ever before, and I know Tom and I were talking about that on the break, and it's so important that we realize that God's in it. He wants to be in your life, and if you invite Him in, that's what's going to have, I think, the biggest impact on your business. So we're here today with Tom Corley, who's an author, a business owner, and a CPA, and Tom wrote a book called Rich Habits, and then now he wrote a new book that just came out called Top 100 Cheapest Places to Retire in the U.S. 2012. So I know it's a long title, but it's filled with amazing information. I'm going to ask Tom to talk about some of the stats that he used. Just the one that blew me away was 320 places to live. He researched in depth so that you and I wouldn't have to do that, and came up with the top 100. So it's good stuff. So Tom, again, welcome today. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
We were talking about habits, rich habits, and I want to finish up on that because I thought that was a great book. Why don't you throw just one or two of the top rich habits that you found in drilling down into that area?
Well, the one that I really think is the most important rich habit is setting goals. Now, if you read self-help books, they'll tell you, oh, it's important to set goals. But they don't tell you how to do it. Right. They don't say, well, what kind of goals? Number one. Number two, what is a goal? Now, I found out at the age of, I guess I was 45 when I embarked on writing Rich Habits or researching it. I found out after all of those years of being in business, after getting my undergraduate degree, getting my graduate degree, getting my CPA, getting my CFP, getting all these licenses, I found out I didn't know what a goal was. And now I had been taught goals in school, and my parents, I guess, were trying to teach us goals. But what I found out was that a goal is not a wish, and a wish is not a goal. If you want to set a goal, for example, isn't, I want to make $250,000 a year. That's a wish. Wishes don't come true. What you want to do is you want to set specific, smaller goals, like, in order for me to make that $250,000, what do I have to do? Maybe I have to make, if you're in the insurance business, life insurance, for example, I use it as an example, maybe you have to make 10 cold calls every single day. Maybe you have to have one meeting every single week. And what do you have to do specifically? A goal is a goal when it's tied to activity, physical or mental activity, not wishing. Wishings, and we're taught goals by everybody in the self-improvement industry incorrectly. When they say set a goal, I want to buy a house, not a goal. Here's the goal. I'm setting aside $300 a week for the next 3 years to buy this house, which is my wish.
Right.
So a goal is a physical activity. That's and there's 5 types. There's daily goals, there's monthly goals, there's current year goals, annual goals, there's next year goals, and there's 5-year goals. All different types of goals. The second one, that's one of my favorite, is live your life in moderation. In every aspect of your life, live moderately. Now, perfect example of this is Warren Buffett, from a financial standpoint. He is living in the same house he was, he got married in 1951. His house, I'm telling you, there are houses a block from here that blow his house away.
Right.
But he's one of the richest guys in the world. Why is it okay for him to not have to live in a castle?
Right.
Because he believes he's been taught the rich habit of living your life in moderation. It's such a habit, he can't break it to this day. He can't live outside of moderation. That's what we need to teach our kids in the schools and at home. We're not. And you can see that with all of the McMansions being built in New Jersey.
Right. It's incredible. It's incredible. Well, those are 2 great points, Tom, and certainly helpful. And if you want the rest of them, make sure you get the book Rich Habits by Thomas Corley, the author.
And Glenn, I just want to point out, you can go on www.richhabits.net.
Okay.
www.richhabits.net. Otherwise, you won't know how to get it.
There you go. So get to richhabits.net. There will also be a link to richhabits.net on the tandemradio.com website. So be sure to check that out as well. So Tom, so we brought this all together into Rich Habits, and you went through the 5 years of research to make that happen, and then all of a sudden something popped up anew that your clients were looking for. Again, all of this in response to your clients. You had clients starting to come to you saying, where am I going to retire? I got less income, less ability. What do I do? Where do I go? Right? So you physically took on the challenge and said, I'll find a place for you to go, right?
Well, initially I said, you know what, there's a lot of websites out there on the best places to retire. And so the clients started coming back to me and they said, you know, it's not answering my question. They're great places to retire, but I can't afford them. And they said, my question to you is this: where should I move? Because I can't afford to live in New Jersey any longer because my retirement assets have dropped. So I said, I have to research this. And so I ended up writing an article that I think it was titled The Best Most Affordable Places to Retire. I focused on 10 locations. But that was just the beginning of my research, which encompassed 3,020 communities.
Wow.
Across the United States. And
Did you go and visit all these?
Pensacola I visited.
Go ahead.
I wish I could visit all of them, because the top 100 are amazing places, just amazing places to live, and cheap. Pensacola, for example, for those who want to have a place in, let's say, that you're renting, or that you downsized in New Jersey, and now you can buy a place in Pensacola for $200,000 anywhere,
right.
Just about, and live on the beach practically. I mean, where are you going to get that? It's very affordable, and there's other examples that we can talk about.
We'll definitely get into those. We have a call coming in. If you're listening and you want to call in, feel free to call in for Tom at 800-575-9564. That's 800-575-9564. We have a caller on the line that has a question for you, Tom. Who do we have on the line? Hi, Tom. So, Tom, you have a question for Tom? Good, let's hear it.
Well, before I answer that, let me ask you this. Do you have grandchildren? Okay, but you have kids. So very similar to my situation. Well, they're going to have kids. At least we hope so, right? So, my question to you is: are you intending to downsize and stay in New Jersey? Number one, and number two, do you also want to do what a lot of people do, which is find an inexpensive place to live, say down south somewhere?
That's not that long.
That's not that long. But would you be living there then and leaving New Jersey to go south? Yep. Okay, well, there's Charleston in South Carolina, I think, is on my list. There's some places in North Carolina. North Carolina, right on the border of South Carolina, there's quite a few places there. Sunset Beach is not on my list, but there's Calabash is another one. If you go a little bit further south, there's plenty of places in Florida which are very inexpensive. The issue, even though North Carolina and South Carolina made my list, the issue that your retirees are going to run into in North Carolina is they keep increasing the income tax down there. They've done it, I guess, twice since I started researching these places. So what you really want is you want to find not only a place that's inexpensive housing, low property taxes. That's North Carolina, by the way, very low property taxes. Low sales taxes. Sales taxes can eat 7%, 8%. That takes a lot out of your pocket. So what you're going to find out, Dover, Delaware, is another one that came up on my list. That might be something that you'd be interested in because you can stay kind of close to the kids when they start having kids.
So, Tom, I think the point is that there are obviously circumstances, whether you're going to stay local or you're going to move out of the area. And I want to strongly recommend you go to richhabits.net, and you can, it's an ebook that you can get there as well, I believe, and grab it, and it'll give you the top titles. Tom, I want to thank you for calling in today. And I heard you're doing something with motorcycle ministry, right? Real quick. Oh, okay. Hmm. Okay. All right, we'll talk about that more after the break. Tom, thanks so much for calling in. That's the Ashley Lauren Foundation ride that they're, we'll mention more details about that right after this break. Tom, thanks. And we got much more for you with Tom Corley talking about the top 100 cheapest places to retire in the U.S. Well, welcome back to Tandem Radio Live. This is your host, Glenn Delakian, and we're here with Tom Corley, who's talking about his newest book, The Top 100 Cheapest Places to Retire in the U.S. in 2012. And that's the topic of our show today, is where to retire. But let's this again, and Proverbs 13:22. A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous. Luke 14:28. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Will he not first sit down and estimate the cost to see if he has enough money to complete it? Like our caller called in a little while ago, you certainly have to plan, you have to know, you have to get a good strong feel for where you want to be and then plan for that accordingly. Matthew 25:34, and of course this is the crux of it, I think. Then the king will say to those on his right, come you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. God's created a kingdom for us since the creation of the world, and those who believe in his Son, Jesus Christ, your inheritance is going to be waiting for you, one way or another. But there's also that inheritance in this life that we want to prepare for, and that's why we have our guest on today. Again, Tom Corley, who's business owner, CPA, and author of Rich Habits, and now his latest book, Top 100 Cheapest Places to Retire in the U.S. in 2012. And again, he put that 2012 on there because this could be a moving target, obviously. And Tom, I know you did a lot of research. Let's talk briefly about a couple of the statistics. I thought it was pretty interesting, some of the research you had to do. Now, starting off again with that enormous number of 3,020 places that you looked into. What were some of the other criteria that you looked at to decide how to recommend this to people? Well,
I had to imagine the magnitude of 3,020. I had to vet out some of the communities by the housing values. And so what I did is I set the housing value at $250,000.
Right.
Anything above $250,000 just did not make my list. If you had real estate taxes in the state that were above $5,000 a year, you didn't make the list. Now that shoots down New Jersey, of course, parts of Connecticut, and I found Utah dropped off my list. I couldn't believe it because the housing prices are higher there.
Really?
Yeah. And in New Jersey, our real estate taxes average about $7,000. Now Texas, which made my list quite often, is considered one of the most expensive places in terms of real estate tax. Do you know the average real estate tax that Texans complain about as being too high is about $2,300. I dare them to live in New Jersey for a year, to own a place. They would go screaming and running back to Texas.
Right.
And then North Carolina, $800 to $1,000. Florida, in the neighborhood of $1,500 to $2,000. So there are plenty of places. Mississippi, the Gulf Coast, along the Panhandle, Florida, all the way through Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, very inexpensive places to retire on the water. On the water. Who doesn't want to live by the beach? Especially us in New Jersey, we love the coastline. So these 3,020 I had to vet down to, I think I dropped it down to 1,000, and then we have a proprietary scoring matrix that we used, using 10 factors, and we ended up, I cut off the first top 100, and I said, this is where I'm going to draw my narratives on, and spent then 2 months writing the book after a year and a half of research.
So you looked at costs, you looked at housing costs, taxes costs. What were some of the other big ones that jumped out at you as far as costs?
Lowest sales tax best climate, lowest crime rate. Who wants to live in a community where it's inexpensive because everybody's getting mugged?
Right.
So low crime rate was very important in my analysis. Low income tax, closest to a major or regional city. That's cultural aspect there. You want to have something to do. Closest to a hospital, airport. If you've got grandkids, as we were just talking, Tom's going to have grandkids one day, our caller. He's going to want to be close to an airport so his kids and his grandkids can come and visit him. So we focused on the proximity to the airport, and then also closest to beaches and the coastlines, which I just think is important for retirees. Warm climate, nice beach weather. So those are the kind of things that we looked at.
That's so important. And it's funny because I'm glad that you're going through these, because when someone does consider a move or a retirement decision, they don't always add in all those factors. They maybe one or two. They might. I see so many people making the mistake of just going for the housing number. You know, they see a house is cheap and they go, "Oh, I'm going to buy that." You know, how many times we see people buying cheap houses and getting stuck with them? But when you think about all these other factors, there's so much more to consider when you're retiring. So you came up with the top 100, right? And is there a big difference in the top 100, or are they pretty well close? I mean, are there 10 that really differentiate themselves, or are they all in that?
Yeah, I think the top 20 really differentiate themselves from the rest of the pack. And the number one was Gregory, Texas. That's 8 miles from really the Gulf Coast. So you're not right on the water, but you're close to it. Holly Hill, Florida came in as number 2, and then Long Beach, Mississippi. They really separated themselves, those top 3, from the pack because the low housing costs, low property tax, and proximity to the coast. You know, in the top 100, I would say 50 of them are within a mile of the ocean.
Right.
So
now, do you see that from a sociological standpoint overall? Do you see this as a new trend that we haven't had to deal with in the past, this migration of people? You know, I've always grown up, and I've grown up in New Jersey, and I just use New Jersey. I know we have a national audience, but I've grown up here, and I've never imagined myself living anywhere else on a permanent basis, visiting maybe. Do you see that as a whole societal shift?
Not necessarily. In New Jersey, it's a shift. In the last, I would say, 5 to 7 years, property taxes have just gone through the roof. And I have a lot of clients that have no choice but to move out of New Jersey. Now, a lot of them are trying to move into Delaware, Pennsylvania, but it's hard to find inexpensive housing in those areas.
Right.
So, unfortunately, you have to go a little bit further south. Until New Jersey gets their arms around the property tax issue, there's going to be a flight out of New Jersey that's going to continue, and what the problem with this recession is, it's forcing people to do what they really don't want to do or want to put off doing, which is move out of the state because of their kids and their grandkids. So I thought it was a very important book to write, because people are dealing with this right now, especially in New Jersey and in New York and Connecticut and a lot of the Northeast, Chicago area, California, can't afford where they live anymore. Right. So they have to move.
Yeah, it's amazing. I had a friend that just came back from Chicago, and he's got kids that live there, and he was amazed at how the prices are going through the roof in that city. Yeah. It's incredible what's happening all over the country. And, we have to understand that all of this ties into planning and thinking ahead. And again, the scripture today, suppose one of you wants to build a tower, will he not first sit down and estimate the cost to see if he has enough money to complete it? Luke 14:28. And I know you're a believer, Tom, and I know you get all these doom and gloom calls. Let's talk just real quick, because we're coming up against the end of the show already. How's your faith impacted your business and what you're doing?
Well, I think the last 3 years, and I was telling you this earlier on a break, it really became important to me, prayer. Because I imagine we're going through this great recession, and the phone calls I'm getting from businesses and individuals are, if I have another month like this, I'm going to be out of business. By the way, I've been in business for 40 years. If I don't get a job by April, I'm going to have to sell everything and move in with my parents. Wow. And I'm 40 years old. Oh, wow. And I have 2 kids. Imagine you get these phone calls, and I've gotten probably 50 of them. your initial reaction is it brings you down, it made me depressed, to be honest. So the depression affected me, and I started reaching out to God in prayer, and I told you specifically what I do, but I do certain things that I pray and say certain things every day to try and find the strength to drag me out of this depression that's being caused by all of these phone calls that I'm getting with all these people, and it's not getting better right now. It's getting worse. So I'm really leaning on prayer to try and get me through this period, because you know what? In the United States, we're the greatest country in the world. This is no different than what we went through when Reagan took over from Carter. We're going to have the same. We just need leadership.
That's right. Hopefully we'll get the right leadership in November next year, and we'll be able to turn this thing around. But that brings us to our ultimate hope, and I want to thank you, Tom, for being in today. And that's where I think this last scripture ties in so well, Matthew 25:34. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world." God has created a better place for us. There's no doubt in my mind. And one day he's going to pull all his children to the right and say, "Come on, you guys, you're coming with me, and we're bringing you home." So regardless of the doom and gloom, I know you have a great positive attitude, Tom, and I know you're always upbeat, and I appreciate you coming in today. It was great stuff and information that people had to hear. And I just want to remind people, top 100 cheapest places to retire in the U.S. in 2012. You can check that out at richhabits.net. Written by Thomas Corley, richhabits.net. Or you can go to the link at tandemradio.com, and we'll tie you right in. Tom, thanks so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much, Glenn. I appreciate it.
God bless you and all you do. It's always good working with you, Tom. We enjoy having you on the show. And I can't wait to hear your next book, because I know those books are driven directly by needs, and it's so powerful. And that's what I like about Tom's writing. It's directly from needs of his clients. You're listening to Tandem Radio Live, and again, tandemradio.com is just a powerful, powerful resource area. You can get today's show there and listen back again to what goes on. We archive all the shows. You can listen to all the previous guests have been on. You can go to our sponsor links that are on there. Our sponsors are good Christian business owners, and they believe in what we believe in, and want to move forward in their life with God's guidance, and they do great work. So we encourage you to see those people. And there's also other resources there as well that you can find out so much more, including about the new Tandem Path Business Network, which we're very excited about. You'll be hearing more about that in the weeks ahead. Thank you to Lucas for coming down and helping out today, and John being in the studio, and Jenna being down as well. And ladies, thanks for coming in today, Tara, and so forth. It's been a great day, and we hope you have a great weekend. And there's many, many more coming up that we're going to have fun and information for you, helping you walk in integrity at Tandem Radio Live on the Bridge FM.